Across American history, men and women from every military branch have answered the call to serve and stepped up to fight under the stars and stripes in defense of our freedom. Today, we recognize their service and sacrifice, and we join all of East Tennessee in offering our deepest appreciation. November 11th marks a day of tributes to our nation's heroes, and we are proud to bring you one of our city's greatest traditions. Welcome to Knoxville's 94th Veterans Day Parade.
It's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
The rifle volley will be performed by the KPD Honor Guard. Taps was performed by Dan Maxwell. We would like to introduce our parade reviewing officer, Colonel James Reed. Colonel, could you please raise your hand? There you, our reviewing officer. Thank you very much, sir.
What an opening to what is always a fantastic day in downtown Knoxville. Good morning and welcome. I'm John Becker along with Ken Irvine, who is a member of American Legion Post 2, one of the organizers of this great tradition in Knoxville. Your post is celebrating 100 years. This is the 94th of this. Ken, how do you describe this day?
Well, this is such a great day for the community to come together and to thank those that have served. We need to remember, of course, this is Veterans Day. We thank everybody that served. Memorial Day is a little different for those that lost their lives. But it's just such a fun day because everybody comes out and really enjoys it. We got a great crowd out here. I've got to thank Todd for this weather, I guess, because it's just gorgeous out here. But Post 2 just loves doing this. We're 100 years old as a post, and we pride ourselves on serving the community still to this day.
We are in the mid-50s. As Ken mentioned, it's balmy outside. Just a wonderful start to this parade. And I'll tell you, there are people all over the world who are tuning in to watch us. That includes a special friend of ours in Texas.
Yeah, Alex Loveday, a staff sergeant, on active duty out there. He's been part of Post 2 activities since he's a little boy. But now he's not a little boy. He's out there serving our country.
He's not. We're glad that he is tuning in, and we're hoping that our friends in Poland as well are tuning in. We know we have some of the members of the 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment who are stationed there as well.
One of my co-workers, Leland Price, is there. He's out there, helping the 278th perform their mission, which they just do year in and year out and do it very quietly.
We're going to see the beginning of this parade start with many folks who run towards trouble in our communities, and that is the motorcycles with KPD and KCSO as well as THP. And our first, little group to walk by the podium, the Girl Scouts. They are such terrific supporters of our community and do great work at such a young age.
Oh, and we love having the young people out here so they can see what this day is all about, because they're just learning about our history, and this is a day where they can see it in action.
These are Webb School of Knoxville, lower school Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts, ages 2 to 5. So great to have them in the parade with us, and they're handing out flags along the parade line. We're going to check in. That was a great shot there. We're going to check in certainly with my colleague Leslie Ackerson throughout the parade. She is, as you mentioned, Ken, along this parade route that has people lined 6 or 7 deep on this gorgeous day.
And mixed all the way in there are lots of veterans. So I hope people will look to the person next to them. If they get something on that says they're a veteran, shake their hand and say thank you.
American Legion Post 2, that's the truck going by with the flags waving and kids smiling. And they're one of dozens of floats this year, Ken.
Yeah, Ray Sexton's on there, one of our Post members. But like I said, Post 2's been at it now for 100 years, since 1919 with the end of World War I. And just pride ourselves on being a service organization.
Pay particularly close attention to this woman driving by. She is a Gold Star mother, lost her son in combat. And these are women we want to celebrate because the families themselves bear the burden of the sacrifice of the men and women who go overseas.
When you meet them, it's a tremendous experience. What they want to do is talk to you about their children that have given their lives. You can see the pain, but you can also see the pride they have in what their son or daughter has done for our country.
This is one of many junior ROTC units that we're going to see. South Doyle, I believe, walking by us as we speak. They've been in action as the Cherokee Battalion since 1994. And Ken, for our viewers who aren't familiar with the JROTC program, explain it.
In our high schools, where there's a program, different branches sponsor different schools, but it takes young men and young women, gives them a chance. It's an after-school activity, very disciplined. They have to meet a pretty high standard. But some of them will go on to serve in the military, some of them won't. But all of them come away with a better sense of discipline and honor. And it's a great program, and Knox County has a lot of that.
They do. We're going to see many of those units in this parade today. I'm not sure how many bands we have. But
I think we have 8 bands, I believe. Bands are my favorite part.
They're awesome, aren't they? And we have a lot of supporters in the community. This one of them, Knox County Farm Bureau Women's Group. Just a little background. They're dedicated to agriculture, to the education of agriculture awareness in this community in hopes of inspiring future farmers.
Basic values that East Tennessee is strong in.
Let's make some noise for the CV Papers of America.
Always great to see. Look at Lady Liberty there, waving the flag on the back of that float. These are the Seabees, I believe, and explain that organization, Ken.
Well, it's back in World War II. They had civilian construction battalions, but they weren't allowed to fight. And in fact, if they tried to fight and get captured, they were considered guerrillas and could be executed. So the Navy created their own construction battalion, Seabees, and they did all the construction, but they were trained to fight. They could do both. They could build and they could fight, and the tradition has continued on to this day.
The Hawks are making their way up in front of the reviewing stand. We're going to just pause for a second and let you listen to them as they drill in front of the reviewing stand. Looking and sounding tight, the Hardin Valley Hawks. Way to go, guys. That's terrific.
It's a really large band.
It is. These are some vehicles you'll recognize with, I believe this is the 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment. They're headquartered here in Knoxville, and this is a storied unit in this community.
It's It's a unit that's spread all across the state, though. They do have their headquarters here, but they have units all across Tennessee. They're one of the last 2 heavy armored cav units, meaning that they have things like tanks. But they have deployed on a regular basis. They have a unit in Poland right now.
This is our Grand Marshal, and it's important to know this man, Captain Mark Brogan. He is a wounded combat veteran in 2006. He was wounded by a suicide bomber, and he is the vice commander of the Knoxville Military Order, the Purple Heart, Chapter 356, Ken.
He's a Post 2 member also. I know Mark. His injuries are serious, but he has overcome that and has turned around and now fights for fellow veterans that are injured and suffered from traumatic brain injury and PTSD, all the things we're seeing today.
He had half his skull removed in order for them to ensure that he would survive the day. He is an extraordinary man. We've done a couple of stories on him, even going so far as to use music therapy to help him in his recovery.
I think he does the horse riding, too, as part of his therapy. We'll see some of those units later on.
He has been an active member of the community, and as you mentioned, has not let that setback in combat really quell his spirit at all.
His spirit is strong.
We're going to pause quickly and take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more of our live coverage from downtown Knoxville in the Veterans Day Parade, a great tradition in this great city. Welcome back to our live coverage in downtown Knoxville of the Veterans Day Parade. You are looking at the Smoky Mountain Service Dogs, and Ken, this is a wonderful organization, and they continue to do great things for our veterans.
Every year they place more and more dogs with veterans. They don't charge the veterans for it. It's such a love project they have for that, and it's so labor intensive to get these dogs where they can help veterans that have a variety of issues that need a little bit of help. And they're now up to 33 dogs they placed, and got a bunch of them out here today.
They have done amazing things, and as you mentioned, it's dozens and dozens of hours of training, not just with the dog itself, but with the dog and the veteran. They must they have to train the veteran as much as they do the dog.
Exactly. I mean, the dogs do some very unique things, and if you don't train the owner, ultimate owner, the recipient of that dog, it loses some of its value. But they're a great plus for our community.
Yeah, they can open refrigerators. They can alert if a veteran is having a seizure. It's just their abilities no bounds. Again, we are in downtown Knoxville. We so appreciate you tuning in online and over the air, no matter where you are in the world. This is something we've done for decades in downtown Knoxville, and it really started back in World War I. Some of the earliest film that is taken in the city is of World War I troops walking in this parade. This is an organization that is just amazing. Honor Air Knoxville. Ken, what can you say about it?
Well, it started several years ago, and Eddie Manis began the program here in Knoxville, and they started taking veterans at no charge to them up to D.C. so they can see the memorials that were made for them. The next flight comes, I think, in April of next year. It's already full, and it's going to focus on female veterans for the very first time.
They have done so many extraordinary things. Veterans will often say when they've done that flight, it is one of the greatest things that's happened in their life.
The viewers, if they get a chance, should go out there when they come back and see the greeting they receive. It will bring tears to your eyes.
Smoky Mountain submarine veterans in this parade as well. This is for volunteers only if you join the Navy. And can you imagine spending some time in the Andrew Jackson? Looks a little tight.
Yeah, they test you for claustrophobia. I don't know why.
Always great to see them. Had a wonderful submariner in our community we lost a while ago. And he always told me that the Navy ran on orange juice and coffee. That's just one example of the old trucks and cars we're going to start to see in this parade as we move on. We're about 27 floats in. And Ken, we have got many more to go.
Over 100 this year. I think it's 120, 121 units this year. We'll see a lot of different businesses that come through that just want to say thank you. Some of them are veterans themselves. Some are just saying we appreciate what the veterans have done for our country.
Yeah, it's terrific. UT Vet School as well marching in this. They have done some extraordinary work with war dogs. One in particular, Leica, was on the cover of National Geographic. Lost her arm, one of her legs in protecting troops in Afghanistan, and was treated at UT Medical Center. One of many war dogs that they have cared for over the years. And again, this is another junior ROTC unit. These are the Bearden High School junior ROTC cadets. And as Ken mentioned, if you missed him at the top of the broadcast, as we saw our first junior ROTC unit move through, not all of these kids will go on to a career in the military.
They don't, but the experience they have, because they have some fairly high standards they have to meet to stay in the program. Now, this one's a Navy-affiliated program, but the young people, at an important part of their life, will learn some very important lessons.
Yes, the venerable tractor rolling through.
The tractor that's pulling a wagon full of area veterans. If you are not here with us this year, just know if you're out there and you're a veteran, if you come down here, we will get you in the parade.
As they roll through, again, Ken, some people may have missed us at the top of the hour, but there is a significance to starting this at 11 o'clock. And explain that history for our viewers who don't know it.
Well, World War I ended at the 11th hour, 11th day, 11th month. So it's not a coincidence that we have the people arrive at the reviewing stand at exactly 11 o'clock here on the 11th day, the 11th month, to honor everyone that has served since that day.
Dave Wright, he is now a representative. He used to be a commissioner, and he's always on the back of that tractor in this parade. Rain or shine. And again, this is one of the community groups that are taking part as well, the Cades Cove Preservation Society. They're proud to honor veterans, and they have been in Maryville since 2001 to preserve the heritage of Cades Cove.
And they come here every year, and they have a few veterans with them every time. It's just their way of saying thank you.
All right, we're going to check in with Leslie Ackerson, my colleague, who's along the parade route. Leslie, what are you seeing and what are you hearing?
Hey, good afternoon, John. You know what I see is a beautiful day for this parade and so many people filling the sidewalks. Girl Scout, Boy Scout troop came by earlier, gave me a flag. So everybody who didn't come prepared with their flag has one now. I'm at the kind of the start of it. So some parade people that you're going to see a little bit later today. But I want to introduce you to two students from the Ellen and STEM Academy that are out here holding this flag. Guys, tell me your name and then tell me why you decided to come out today.
I'm William Satterfield, and that's
Your buddy.
Yeah.
I'll let him introduce himself.
okay. Well, we're with Ellen and STEM Academy, and I thought I'd bring a flag because people lay down their lives and they don't get to show up and see how much appreciation they're really getting for this. And I thought it'd be nice to bring it out here and fly it on the side.
Definitely. Well, it is a beautiful flag, and you guys have been holding this since the start of the parade. I'm going to come over here. Tell me your name as well and what you've enjoyed from the parade so far.
I'm Jacob Presley, and I've just been glad to see all the veterans who have come out here and just been out here to show that they've served so we can pay our respects to them.
Awesome. Well, honestly, it's really cool to see a lot of young people out here, John, wanting to get involved, especially as the parade goers as well. Local high schools involved in a band, some junior ROTC groups. I think it's really cool. When I've talked to some of the veterans along this route, I asked them, hey, what is the thing that you've enjoyed the most? And they said seeing the young people out here. They're so honored and grateful that young people continue to carry on this history and see the need to show respect for what so many people have done here in our country. I think it's going to be a great rest of the day. I think it was raining this time last year, actually. So we got blessed with a beautiful day to come down here and honor our veterans across Knox County, Blount County, and all of East Tennessee. It's really, really gorgeous. I'm going to find some more fun people to talk to, some veterans coming up later, but I'll send things back over to you at the front and see what you guys are checking out right there.
This is Bearden High School. Following it, we will take a short break for our viewers on television and be back momentarily. Back live in downtown Knoxville with the Veterans Day Parade. Could you get a better shot than that? We've got you covered from the sky right down to the parade itself. This is the L&N STEM Punks. Ken, they're terrific participants in this every year.
They come from the L&M STEM Academy, and they are pretty bright kids, first of all. And it's fun to see what they do. They're kind of highlighting Rosie the Riveter this year. Takes us back to World War II, the famous icon. And they're trying to do that as their salute to veterans, and specifically, again, some of the women that helped in the war effort.
We're seeing some of the cars roll by, trucks with VFW posts. For veterans of foreign wars, explain the significance of that, because a lot of people may see the signs VFW but not know the significance.
Well, in order to join that organization, you have to be specifically have served in a foreign war. Each veterans organization has their own criteria for what membership is, but anybody that's a member of that organization has served in a time when a war was going on.
Dates back to 1899 after being formed by veterans of the Spanish-American War, and they now have 1.7 million members.
And the post here today is post 1733. It's right in downtown Knoxville near the intersection of Gill Street and Hall of Fame Boulevard.
Knoxville Military Vehicle Club, and these are going to take you back definitely a few years. That's a more modern one, but you saw one of the other trucks that was rolling through, and they always have a good showing in this parade.
They do. Some very interesting vehicles. Most of them, like I said, Humvees, which are newer, I guess, but that's just because I'm older.
The Blue Knights Tennessee Motorcycle Club, and this is made up of law enforcement officers who are also members of the military or veterans themselves. And this is, again, another regular and one you may see around town.
And they form both to be a social group among themselves, but they also then provide service to the community as a veterans group.
It's that camaraderie that I think a lot of military veterans express they miss when they leave the branch of service in which they served.
Whatever branch you served in, it's a unique experience to be on active duty or in the Guard, Reserve. You get very, very close to people very fast because basically you're depending on them for your lives. And there's not many places that will forge that kind of bond. And you do miss it when you leave. One of the ways they take care of that is to join up with other veterans and continue to serve their country and their community.
We are not even halfway through this parade. That's how many terrific floats we have and people taking part. And yes, here they are, the Smoky Mountain Model A Club. These guys have the best horns in the business.
And they come every single year. They love coming out here. Flags everywhere, veterans everywhere. But what an amazing job of restoration. I can't imagine how much time and effort they put into that.
Furry friends, everybody's out today. That's the kind of day it is.
The dogs are sporting their red, white, and blue.
And this is a big group.
Every year they bring out a group. They come out. We have the Corvettes most years. We have the Mustangs some years. But this group makes it every single year.
Such a fun tradition. I mean, you can't get any better than this. It is worth noting, Ken, that this community is so supportive of veterans, and yet we don't have a massive base. We aren't Fort Campbell, Fort Jackson. We do have different units stationed around, but it's pretty extraordinary. What can you say about that as a veteran yourself?
Yeah. What we have is history. We're not the volunteer state by accident. We're the volunteer state because every time our country is called, Tennesseans have answered in disproportionately large numbers. Literally, that's where the nickname comes from. So what you have here in East Tennessee and across our great state is you have a lot of veterans, even though we don't have the big bases here.
If memory serves, we talk about the 1%. The military is made up of the 1% of the population. Tennessee, it jumps up to like 7% when you look at it over a population and how many people who are veterans are living in this state.
That's a 200-year-old tradition, though. That's not new. Those Model A's were kind of new when we started this parade.
All right, this is the Halls Veterans Women's Salute League there, and we're happy to have them in the parade as well. DAR is something you'll hear a lot as well. Explain the roots of that organization, Ken.
And again, we have several groups here with DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. They're one of several groups that trace their history back to the Revolutionary War. You have to be able to trace yourself to a relative to join in that. But again, it's not just to be in a group that calls themselves that. They do that to promote patriotism and understanding of our history and the appreciation of our democracy.
They do a lot of education work for young people to just get them, as you mentioned, understanding the significance of what we've seen in the sacrifice by our military members and their families.
Well, and the military members know that freedom isn't free, but it also is something we have to be constantly aware of and appreciate, because we could lose our freedoms easily, and they're committed to not letting that happen.
That shot is so terrific from the top of the skyline here in Knoxville, looking down on Gay Street. And again, this tradition dates back almost 100 years. This is the 94th Veterans Parade in downtown Knoxville, and they only took a couple of years off when we had a war going on.
World War II. I mean, other wars we've continued it, but in World War II there were a couple of years where we did not have the parade.
Ben Ashley does so much for our veterans, often at the end of their lives.
It's an amazing facility. I've been out there several times, met with some of the veterans that live there. They're so well taken care of. The veterans home there is rated as one of the best retirement homes in the country. And I'm not talking about veterans retirement homes, just all retirement homes. A very high standard. And Tennessee is doing a nice job of trying to build these types of homes around the state to help veterans that need that kind of care at the end of their life.
They were caring for a 93-year-old Marine who used to be in this crowd every year. I posted about him on my social media and Instagram. And he was an Iwo Jima survivor, played dead on Iwo Jima on the Black Sands there while he had outrun his unit, and he had to play dead while the enemy troops went through his pockets. Managed to survive that and make it home, and we just lost him last week. So,
but they didn't call that group the greatest generation for nothing. That's an amazing story. But if you talk to that generation, there are stories like that everywhere. What they went through, what they had to do to survive, what they saw their friends go through. We owe them so much. That was a war where the entire population was committed and had to be involved.
It was. That was James Colquitt I was talking about. Then I also talked years ago to a nurse who was in Ben Ashley, and I said, were you close to the front lines in World War II? And she said, I was so close that when the shells hit, the medicine bottles would explode.
It's also a change we've seen in modern warfare, that kind of the front lines concept has gone away because the weapon systems we have can hit so deep that if you're out there in a combat zone and you don't have to be right on the front lines, you're at risk. So all these men and women that are in Afghanistan today, in Iraq and Syria, and God only knows where else, they're out there risking their lives for you and me.
We saw the Blue Star mothers roll by. That's the significance of that, is having a member of one of your children is in the military and they may be away.
Another tradition that dates back, I believe, to World War II, where when a son or daughter was serving in the military, they would put a star up in their window so their neighbors would know, and we would just hope that it didn't turn to a gold star. They didn't want to lose anybody, but, you know, families would have, 4 sons serving at one time, so you would see 4 blue stars, and that continues to today. But again, they try and support everyone that's in the military community.
All right, we've got the Thunderbird Club, and they are led by a Choice Cherry Ride. How about that?
What a beautiful car. These groups are one of the ones that we sometimes ask them to give a ride. If we have a veteran who just shows up and wants to be in the parade, we find a place for them. This is one of the groups. They'll just say, sure, hop in. We'll give you a ride. But I just want to repeat that. If someone next year is thinking, oh, I wish I was in that parade and I'm a veteran, come out. We will get you in the parade. Flags everywhere.
Flags everywhere. Clapping. I mean, just such a show of appreciation, which is what you hope Veterans Day is about. You said it at the top of the hour. We reserve Memorial Day to pay tribute to the troops that we have lost, who've been killed in battle. It's a day of reverence. This is a day of celebration.
Yeah, Memorial Day is a day of reflection, a day of prayer. Today, it should be fun. It is good to respect what's done, but as a veteran, I can tell you the greatest honor of my life was serving my country. So it's a great thing to have had the opportunity to do. We live in the best country on the face of this world, and it is only that way because every generation has had men and women that will step up and say, we will defend this.
Well said. As we look at the rest of these cars that are rolling through, you're seeing the more modern Thunderbirds here at the back, but it's important to note there is a great place of reverence in this community. The World's Fair Memorial to Veterans, the East Tennessee Veterans Memorial, is in downtown in World's Fair Park, and it has the names of more than 6,000 men and women who have died fighting from East Tennessee for this country since World War I.
Yeah, if you haven't been out to see that, you really ought to find the time just to go by there and take a look. And it will really drive home to you how many people have had to give their lives so that you and I can be here today and have a parade. It didn't just happen. It's a world-class memorial. The people who put that together deserve high praise. But it kind of will make you reflect a little bit when you walk through there and see name after name.
The brainchild of Colonel Bill Felton, and again, as Ken mentioned, it's worth going, and you may even go at night. That's when it adds even more significance with the lights and the names that are etched in stone. We're going to check in once again with my colleague, Leslie Ackerson, who's along the parade route. Hey, Leslie.
Hey, good afternoon, John. I have found an awesome couple to talk to. I want to introduce you to the Delosiers, who have been down here waving this big flag out here. Guys, tell me, why did you decide to come down to the parade today?
I come every single year.
Every single year. And you bring your partner in crime with you, too.
Sometimes, yeah, but to support the veterans. The veterans are very, very important to this country.
And tell me about your years of service.
I was in Vietnam 69 to 70, 3rd Marine Division. I was up at Quang Tri Division, province, and served on the DMZ. So.
Well, thank you so much for your service. John, it's a little bit loud out here, but you know, when we're celebrating these veterans, and we got motorcycles by us, I think it's important to remember the spouses as well, and so many of them down here celebrating Veterans Day. I think I'm going to have to send it back to you and come back because it is way too loud out here with the motorcycles. We'll check back in just a second.
Sounds great, Leslie. We know your pain with those motorcycles. Ken, though, important to say, a lot of people aren't sure still how to thank a veteran. With Vietnam veterans, often just the phrase "welcome home" is something that can mean a tremendous amount.
Well, that gentleman that was just interviewed was a Marine. He served in Vietnam. If you saw what he had on his chest, he had a Purple Heart. They don't give those away. You have to be injured to get one. An award that dates back to George Washington in the Revolutionary War. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to walk up and shake a person's hand and say, thank you, welcome home.
Fulton High School band rolling through the reviewing stand now. These guys are always terrific, always in tight formation, and a great participant in this parade. Right behind them is another junior ROTC unit. This is Gibbs High School.
This is a unit that's connected with the Air Force. We've had Navy, we've had Air Force. We almost always have an Army and a Marine Corps unit that come through, but that just means that they're being sponsored by one of the branches. There's an awful lot of people that are retired military that come out and help organize these units and give these young people the kind of training and experience that's very helpful to them.
This is a look at the Korean War veterans, and this is often known as the Forgotten War. And explain the reason behind that, Ken, for our viewers who don't know.
Well, I mean, just historically, we don't talk about the war much. It went for about 3 years under the auspices of the United Nations, and it's just not a thing that we talk about in history. It never officially ended. It's an armistice that sent everybody home, but it didn't really end the war. So sometimes it does get forgotten. Overall, among the total theater of operations, there were 3 million people that had fatalities. So it was a very costly war. But yeah, the Korean War veterans don't get much press.
And they should. They are extraordinary, and many of them were World War II veterans as well who moved on into Korea. I remember talking to one who said it was so cold at times they would fire their weapons in order to hold the barrel and heat their hand up.
Well, it's one of the places I got to serve in when I was in the military. I spent a year in Korea. It is the coldest place on earth, and during part of the year, it's also the wettest part. The rains will get you during one part of the year, and the cold will get you another. So as far as a place where they had to serve and fight, I can't imagine.
You're looking at Appalachian Jeeps and Off-Road. This is a group of Jeepers who enjoy doing charity events and community service as well. Willie's Jeeps mixed in there.
I recognize some of these Jeeps. See, they're as old as me.
They do a lot of Toys for Tots work as well. We're going to take a quick break here for our television viewers. For those of you online, our coverage continues. We'll be back right after this.
Military Vehicle Club. Thank you, guys.
We're back with our live coverage. You're not going to be able to hear me, so I'm just going to let you listen in for just a second. Yeah, this is the Roughnecks, one of the motorcycle groups that's in, and they're letting Knoxville know they're in town. These are combat veterans from all different branches who are taking part in this ride this morning. Lots of smiles, and again, bringing the thunder today, Ken.
Yeah, I think we've just learned over the years, just try not to talk too much when they go by. They bring a lot of spirit to the group, though.
Great shot from up top. We've got you covered with 4 different cameras. My colleague Leslie Ackerson is in the crowd as we continue our coverage of the Veterans Day Parade in downtown Knoxville. We hope if you're serving overseas that you're safe and enjoying a little time of rest while you take in this parade in your hometown. We know a lot of people are not able to be with us because they're serving this country in parts unknown. Ken, as we come up on this part of the parade, we're about 65 floats in or so, looking at Sharon Baptist Church, and the Tennessee Valley Model A Club will be following up behind then. Again, lots of community groups who want to take part, and as you mentioned, they're just here to say thank you to veterans and perhaps even bring a veteran along with them.
Yeah, and they're very proud of their members of their organizations, their churches, their clubs, or business that's a veteran. It's interesting that sometimes people don't even know they have veterans all around them, because some of them don't talk about it. And that's maybe especially true for those that have had the toughest time. They've served in actual combat, that sometimes they don't open up as much. So sometimes you might be surprised to learn that person at that desk next to you served in the military.
Mm-hmm. They are our neighbors, but they often don't talk about it. More of the Model A Club. These are 1929, 1931 original Model A cars. Henry Ford would be proud. The Ooga horn is something that is distinct and always a fun tradition in downtown Knoxville.
It's a classic. But again, we see flags everywhere. We see signs that say in memory of someone that they've lost. They're very, very much involved in their patriotism. And like their horns.
Following them up, you're going to see the Muscle Car Ministries. There's Neil Sharp, World War II era veteran. And that's so nice when, as Ken mentioned, groups like this can give somebody a ride and a little attention in a parade like this.
It is. This is the parade for the veterans. So come on out. We either join us in the audience, or like I said, you show up at the start line. We'll get you in a vehicle and you can ride.
Another community group, Muscle Car Ministries, and they've got the red, white, blue in the T-top. Every year you see that big flag down sort of in the middle of Gay Street, and that's the fire department that's put that up, and they do, it just sets the tone, I think, every year.
Well, it's important to remember, both with the fire department, with our various law enforcement groups like KPD and the Sheriff's Department, an awful lot of those men and women are veterans. It's kind of a natural transition from serving your country as part of the military and then coming and serving your community, whether it's with the police or with the fire department. So lots of veterans in those kind of groups.
Vietnam vet, U.S. Air Force Sergeant Steve Larson. Thank you, Steve. Thank you all, Vietnam vets.
Again, you hear Gunner behind us as well. He's thanking all Vietnam vets. He's with WIVK. He spent some time with the 278th in Iraq when they were deployed. He's a longtime supporter of the military, and always good to have him as the man calling this parade for the audience that's on the street.
You know, for years we've talked about how we're losing our World War II veterans. We pretty much have lost our World War II veterans, or have gone. We are now losing our Vietnam veterans. So if you know somebody and you want to have a chance to say welcome home or thank you, you need to take it. They're getting older, and a lot of them have suffered various disabilities because that was a difficult war. They were in some extreme circumstances. So now's the time.
Now is certainly the time. This is the East Tennessee Bucketeers, 8th year that they've been in the parade, and they're here to thank veterans and have some fun banging on those buckets.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat little tradition that they had disabilities that they couldn't serve, but they recognize how important service is, and they want to say thank you. Just kind of add something extra to the parade.
You see the lineup of the East Tennessee Corvette Club, and this is one that always puts in, I don't even know how many cars they have this year, but it usually stretches back at least a block.
They do turn out, and like I said, every car has the red, white, and blue on it. You see a lot of the drivers have hats on that show what service they were in. So lots of veterans in these cars.
Take a look at that crowd as well. Ken, you and I were talking. We've done several of these parades in our years here, and I mean, 6, 7 deep is pretty unusual.
It is. It's a great thing that, people find time on this Monday morning to come out here. This is not a day that everybody gets off. Schools are still in, so that means a lot of people have made an effort to come out here, and that really speaks well of Knoxville and Knox County.
The scene here, if you can't see it just from our pictures, taking that wide shot, really gives you a sense of the community support here for veterans. It is just extraordinary to see that, to me. Again, we're a city that doesn't have a major base. We have a lot of presence of military units, but to see this in a place like this says a lot.
There's a national magazine, I can't remember the name of it right now, but ranked this parade as one of the top 10 veterans parades in the country. So the people here make it happen. Obviously, there's a couple of groups that get together to put the people on the street, but then the community, the support from the community is what makes this a great parade.
Again, you're looking at the East Tennessee Corvette Club, and they are here in force. We're going to be back with our television viewers right after this short break. Back live, just finishing up the West High School band. As Ken mentioned, great drum cadence from them, and following them up, the KUB veterans. Again, one of the groups that is taking part, honoring the veterans in their community and their business. It's always awesome to see that support. Going to check in real quickly with my colleague Leslie Ackerson once again along the parade route. Hi, Leslie.
Hey, John, you were talking about that big old flag earlier. I wanted to give you guys a picture of what it looked like from my perspective, the one that the Knoxville Fire Department puts out. I think you called it, just sets the scene perfectly for this parade out here today. It's been a beautiful day, and we've met so many great people, including my new friend and veteran, Mike Pitt. We're going to bring Mike in. Mike, tell everybody why you decided to come down to the parade today.
Well, first and foremost, you can look up and down the street and see the support that we've got in the area. And then also to see, my fellow brothers and sisters in arms that have served. Some just single tour, and some like me retired. So it was good to come out. We had a great day for it, and it was just, in my heart, I felt like I needed to come down and do it too. So
What has been your favorite part so far today?
Seeing the veterans come down through here with their participation, waving back at the crowd, you know, and just seeing their history of where they were at, where they served, everybody from young people up to our World War II vets that we still have in the area. So
excellent. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your service and for chatting with us.
Yes.
So many people like Mike in the crowd and participating here in the parade, and it's really cool too. One of the things veterans continue to tell me is they are so encouraged by seeing all the young people, the children, the youth that are down here showing support as well. I'll send things back down to your end, John, to check on what's happening there.
Leslie, thanks so much. Oh, so well said, Ken. He summed it all up. It's just, that is what you hope, is that a veteran will come down, see their fellow veterans, and just appreciate what they've been through together.
And also, Leslie said about the children being out here.
Yeah.
They are our future. They're coming out here and seeing what the different people have done in their lives. But yeah, it's always fun as a veteran to come out here and see other veterans. I like to shake their hand because I appreciate what they did. So it is. It's a perfect day. And everybody seems to be having a great time.
Emory Road, Daughters of the American Revolution, again, as Ken adeptly explained earlier in the broadcast, you know, that's a group that is really devoted to explaining the history of our culture and heritage in our traditions in America. And they do wonderful things really across the community.
And it's important work. It doesn't get recognized very often, but they'll go into schools, they'll go into community groups, they'll talk to people about the Constitution, about our history, and it's important that people can know about that.
These World War II reenactors are airborne reenactors. Again, this looks sort of like the Easy Company that you may have seen in the HBO docu-series that was fictional but based on real events in World War II.
The detail of their uniform is amazing. They're period pieces, basically, from World War II for a unit that was formed down in Georgia and basically learned to jump out of planes. These are farm boys and the young men from the inner city suddenly being asked to jump out of planes.
The Band of Brothers.
And they did it. And they were an important force in World War II. And to this day, our airborne troops are an important part of our military.
If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. One of the best series that's ever been produced, in my humble opinion. Again, we see some political participants as well. This is not unusual that we're seeing folks from all stripes come and take part in this parade today.
Right. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. You know that the military sacrifice is important to our country, so it's one area that everybody can come together and say, yes, we agree.
These two guys on the dock represent the Christian Motorcycle Association, including many...
Followed up from the Knox County Democrats, the Christian Motorcyclist Association. And this is a local chapter that does include many veterans as well. That's Gloria Johnson. She represents this area in the State House.
These colors do not run.
We're looking at the Military Order of the Purple Heart as well, Chapter 356. This is Claiborne Hauling LLC, and the Purple Heart folks will be following them. But these folks always have just amazing artwork on their trucks, for sure. And as I mentioned, they're going to be followed by the Military Order of the Purple Heart. We talked a little bit about that with Captain Brogan, the Grand Marshal of the parade today. Ken, explain the significance of that for people who may have missed it.
Well, in order to receive the Purple Heart, you have to have actually been wounded or killed while serving with the military. It dates back to General George Washington, the Revolutionary War. It was actually known as the Badge of Military Merit then, but he actually designed it himself and handed it out to certain individuals personally, and then authorized subordinate commanders to start handing it out. If you know someone that has a Purple Heart, nobody gives those away. Nobody wants to get one, but that's somebody that you need to give a little extra handshake to.
And let's please recognize Miss Knoxville, volunteer 2020.
Miss Knoxville making an appearance as well in Thunderbird as she rolls by the reviewing stand in downtown Knoxville. Again, gorgeous weather coming up on the top of the hour here as well, and we are at least 20 floats away from the end.
We have a great group of floats out here. It's amazing that over 100 different groups will come out here and sign up to be in this parade. We're just here in little old Knoxville, but boy, do they turn out.
They certainly do. We're also looking at Morning Point, Knoxville. This is assisted living for veterans as well. And we're seeing more and more participation from groups like this, Ken.
Yeah, this is actually the second one. They had their Powell location go through earlier. Now this is the one here in Knoxville. And they run programs at their assisted living. I actually have a family member in one of the Morning Points, and they do programs to recognize Veterans Day, but also they brought their little buses out here, got them all red, white, and blue, and then bring their veterans out so they can be part of the parade.
We're moving past the top of the hour. Just want to remind you, you're watching WBIR Channel 10. The new news will start right after our live coverage of the Veterans Day Parade. This is Star Academy, and they do such great work with horses and veterans, Ken.
It's an amazing thing that has kind of grown up in the last decade. What we've recognized is that people come back from combat with a variety of issues. Some of them have post-traumatic stress, some have traumatic brain injuries, and they need a way to get back into society. And things like horses, things like fly fishing, things like service dogs are things that, and it's different for each veteran. So the one person that may need a service dog doesn't need to go through the horse program. But these people take their time to have a program where soldiers can interact with horses so they can get over those issues and be, you know, right back in the community. And it's an impressive development. We've gone from we don't talk about it to we think that some of the service members have done something wrong to now we know it's part of what happens in combat and we need to treat it. And it's not just about giving them drugs. It's about finding creative ways to get them back in our community.
Talk about horses. There's some horsepower. The Mustang Club. They're you know, following up closely on the heels of the Corvette Club, and both of these always put in a lot of cars and have fun.
Yeah, they just come out here and honor the veterans. And like I said, you can see that the number of them are veterans themselves. But it's just one of the many groups that wants to come out here and be part of this.
Thank you, man.
We support the real superheroes. How great a sign is that? That's what we're talking about.
Approaching the reviewing stand for a special review, the Anderson County High School.
Great costumes today.
ROTC.
Anderson County High School Junior ROTC is right after them. And this is a group that's made up of several dozen cadets.
Yeah, it's a huge group. They, again, are sponsored by the Navy in this case. They didn't bring all of their cadets because we know that they have over 100 cadets in their total program.
See, my neighbor, Mr. Carini, walked by. He's a member of the 101st, if I remember correctly, and he doesn't jump out of planes anymore, but he keeps about the best lawn in the neighborhood. Anytime towing, it looks like they can tow any number of cars out of here.
Anything, anytime.
Again, if you're just joining us, we're just past the top of the hour in Knoxville. We'll get to the noon news, but you are watching one of the great traditions in this city unfold before your eyes, the Veterans Day Parade. This is the 94th Veterans Parade in the city of Knoxville. Comes down Gay Street or up, depending on your perspective, every year. Starts at about 11 and then rolls right through to the end. And we have more than 100 units and floats in this parade this year, so expect it to go on a little bit more.
Yeah, if we take just a second, let's talk about Colonel Reed, who's our reviewing officer. Colonel James Reed, he's part of our own state National Guard, someone that joined as enlisted, went on to officer candidate school, and now is a full colonel. Went off and served in the Middle East, was wounded there, and I think received a Bronze Star while he was there and a Meritorious Service Medal. It's kind of a typical story of just a person that starts out as an enlisted person, has risen well through the ranks through dedicated service. So salute out to Colonel James Reed.
And explain the significance of a reviewing officer at a parade like this, Ken. This is something that is military tradition, and you see the military groups and units that come by saluting that person.
Yeah, it's a tradition that kind of shows itself in several different ways. You know, it is a long-time thing. The officers reviewing troops is a similar example. But it's meant to honor that person, but also we're honoring the Army this year, and he's a part of the Army. So he is being honored, but we also honor the Army generally through his presence.
If you can hear Gunner there in the background, Masonic military veterans stopping in front of the reviewing stand.
And it's typical of what you see is an awful lot of veterans come home with now part of their DNA of service. And they don't stop just because they put the uniform up in the closet. These are particularly Masons that are serving the community. Everybody knows all the great things that Masons do, but it's not surprising they've got a bunch of veterans in that group because service is just part of what they do.
Following them is the Carter High School Band. Excuse me, the allergies of East Tennessee have got me in their grips.
Well, as long as it's not the snow that they may have tomorrow.
That's coming. Yes, this is our time to plug 10 News coming up at 4, 5, 6, and you'll hear all the weather conditions that will be a-changing. Todd's going to be in with that, and yes, we're going to take a dive in temperatures and also going to see some dusting of snow and ice. I'll let him deal with the particulars, but get ready, Knoxville. Things are about to change.
Todd gets an A+ for today.
He does. He definitely does. We're going to take a moment and just let you listen into the band here, and my colleague for this broadcast, Ken Irvine, and I will be back with you in just a second. Fun moment.
And now the Knoxville Closet Squadron Civil Air Patrol Color Guard with
Thank you, ma'am.
Marshals and a band.
Chief, would you like to speak?
Next up is the Thin Line Support Tennessee. They support our veterans, brothers and sisters, and they do amazing work. Approaching the reviewing stand, the Austin East Band and High School Air Force Junior ROTC.
Were you in ROTC, Ken?
I was not.
Villages of America support our veterans.
Wow. We're back with our live coverage in downtown Knoxville of the Veterans Day Parade, and it is an unbeatable weather day here, and what a turnout from this community. We'll get to the new news right after this parade finishes, but boy, do we have more in store for you today. John Becker alongside Ken Irvine, and Ken is a veteran himself with American Legion Post 2, a past commander, and Ken, really a privilege to work with you today, but let's talk about some of the folks we're seeing along this route and getting goodies from you name it.
Well, this is another one of the private organizations that came out and wanted to say thank you That's always a great thing that the community recognizes. Of course, throughout the community today, there's all kinds of places giving free meals and free things to veterans as a way of saying thank you. There's a number of restaurants in town that routinely give a discount if you're a veteran. So that it's nothing new. It's just they're coming out here doing it very publicly today.
We have a list of those discounts right now at WBIR.com if you'd like to check them out. And also, this day is about saluting veterans, and you're welcome to go to our Honor Your Vet page at WBIR.com and upload a picture and story of a veteran that you would like to salute. That's perfectly free and available for you to do right now at WBIR.com as we roll through more floats in downtown Knoxville. We know, I'm trying to figure out who's in this Thunderbird, Ken. Remind me, well, we know they're paying tribute to Vietnam veterans. I saw the picture of the Vietnam Memorial there in D.C.
You know, I think in that car may have been just this Mr. Hicks that they told us. They didn't explain. It was just a veteran that wanted to be here. He's not trying to do anything special, just be here today and soak us in.
Great example of that. We've talked a lot about junior ROTC units, this one from Oak Ridge, and they represent the Navy, and they're out in full force today as well.
On their guidon, they had Distinguished Unit 2019, so they're doing it right. They are an excellent unit. Again, it's look at these young people. One of the things that the Legion lets me do is get out in the community and see young people that are being successful. We have within our organization a oratorical contest. We do boys state. I run into young people that I'm so impressed with, and these are some of them right here now marching in front of us.
And for members in junior ROTC, they're going to high school. This is in addition to that, and they take on extra work and extra discipline.
Right. They all do all of this after hours. They have to meet certain standards. They have to be there for certain organizations. They have to be able to stand in formation, learn to march, all kinds of things they have to do that nobody's making them do. They're doing it because they think it's important to them.
Pellissippi State Community College followed up. They do wonderful things honoring their veterans and getting them back into school and into a career after the military. You'll see there's Anthony Wise, the president of Pellissippi, passing the reviewing stand. But we're going to do a couple of stories, one in particular coming up on Thursday about a colonel who is a professor at Pellissippi right now, and her story will make your jaw drop. I'm going to leave you with that, but you'll see that story this week on our Service and Sacrifice segment Thursday.
Well, there's a long history in our country of service members coming back and going to school. The GI Bill, everybody knows about that. In fact, the American Legion wrote the original GI Bill. But it's one of the things that benefited me personally. I'm a lawyer now because of my military experience. They paid a huge chunk of that, meaning thank you, taxpayers. You put me through school. But it's one of the things that the military does come back, and places like Pellissippi are central to that.
We'd like to give you a little taste of what it sounds like here. Ken and I will come back and call the parade momentarily, but let's listen in. That is one man that takes their job seriously, the Farragut Admirals, and people know the name Farragut, and they should know why they're the Admirals. Ken, fill us in. It has significance.
Well, you know, as we talked about, there's so many people from East Tennessee serve. Admiral Farragut's just one of those. You know, I'm pretty sure he's, you know, damn the torpedoes full speed ahead. It's just that attitude that people from East Tennessee bring that we're going to get things done, and he's one of our local heroes.
First Admiral of the Navy, I believe, Admiral Farragut. And as we move to, these are the last few floats in this Veterans Day Parade. You're going to see William Blount High School's junior ROTC momentarily. And again, Ken pointing out that our rescue workers are those who run toward trouble in the community, not away from it. And we appreciate them in our community today as well.
Here we got the Cabela, Temple, 78, Prince Hall Shriners, motorized unit.
These guys are always a hit. They usually come at the end every year, zooming around in those little four-wheeled scooters, if you will.
It's hard to tell who has more fun, them or the audience.
We're seeing the Red Cross as well, Ken, and this is an organization that spends lots of time supporting military families.
And they do it in a lot of different ways. Sometimes just getting information, because military members are spread across the globe, and wherever the military goes, there's somebody from the Red Cross there. If you have an emergency and need to get home, it's the Red Cross that's going to help you get home. But like I said, sometimes it's just delivering word that that child is born or something like that. So they do that on a regular basis.
They have served that role for decades. In fact, the Red Cross helped reunite a sweater that was made in World War II with a family whose veteran knew about this sweater, and it was hanging in East Tennessee, and they were able to return it to him. A great story that we did years ago, but it's such a deep connection the Red Cross has to supporting our veterans.
And they support us here in this area too. Whenever we have an event going on, they're always out there with hot coffee and donuts. So they do it here, they do it overseas.
William Blount taking part, another junior ROTC unit. This is their chance to shine in their terrific style for everyone to see, and getting much due attention, much deserved attention on a day like today.
It's always good to see young people doing well.
As you take that live look there at the skies above, you can see we're getting closer to the end of this parade, and it has been an extraordinary one. We stepped off at just after 11, and we're coming up on the bottom of the hour now. Again, we'll have full coverage of the noon show in just a second, but this is the American Legion Riders of Post 2, and this is the post that puts on this parade every year. And Ken, you are deeply invested and a longtime member of that post.
It did. I was drawn to them because everywhere I went in Knoxville, I saw Post 2 members providing service to the community, and they continue to that this day. This parade is all about that. These riders are some of our most active members, and they get out there and do all kinds of great things, raising money for veterans, for the community, for everyone, just, again, still serving.
You see Gunner there with the mic and the cowboy hat doing one last connection here. We'll listen in if we can.
Who's in this vehicle? Come on out, show everybody. Who are you? Two Army veterans from the Knoxville Police Department, so they're doing double duty to our community. Feel free to wave. It's all right. It's all right.
We're going to bring you back down to the sidewalk as we finish up our coverage, our live coverage of this Veterans Day Parade. Ken Irvine, it's a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you for your service, sir.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Always great to have Ken alongside us, filling in so much of what our veterans mean to this community and to our country. We are grateful for wherever you tuned us in today, whether it be Poland, whether it be Texas, whether it be just around the corner. Thank you for watching. We're going to be back with 10 News at noon right after this. I'm John Becker signing off from downtown Knoxville.
the remotes.
Heather, mic check.
Mic check 1 2 3 4 5. But at the same time, we were.
1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Well, you know what Brandon did a couple.
One, two, three, 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, Heather. The 94th Annual Veterans Day Parade.
Right now at noon, a cold blast moving into East Tennessee and around the region. The areas across the country expected to get hit the hardest.
And we're going to be talking about that forecast coming up right now as you step outside for lunch. It's actually really nice outside. A few idling clouds and temperatures in the 50s and 60s. But boy, what a change is on the way. Details on that coming up.
Plus, Knoxville's Veterans Day Parade just wrapping up. How East Tennessee is celebrating our veterans today.
10 News is brought to you in high definition exclusively by Harper Auto Square. WBIR.